Terrible. I don't think that's breaking news to anybody. This is our Monday Night Football post-game show talking about the 49ers and the win over the Cowboys. We have the grades for the win over the Cowboys up on the San Francisco Standard. Yes, that is Brock Purdy. But I'm referring to Daniel Jones right now very briefly because the Steelers just beat the New York Giants, and it was just like nails on a chalkboard to watch that game whenever New York had the ball offensively. End it with an interception, fittingly, as the Giants were trying to make it downfield to tie the game. Pittsburgh is now 6-2, and Russell Wilson has been a big upgrade over Justin Fields. Russell spinning the ball nicely. Seems that he's focused, healthy, and there was that one really nice pass toward the end to George Pickens on the corner route right near the sideline. Interesting team up there in Pittsburgh. We know that's a gritty team, good special teams. Typically will play good defense. TJ Watt had a massive strip sack there toward the end of it. But you pair all that with a decent quarterback. I mean, they were dealing with Kenny Pickett in years prior. Looks like Russell Wilson's playing at a decently high level. Pittsburgh could make some noise in the AFC. Speaking of making noise, the 49ers did so in the third quarter yesterday, a historically good third quarter. I write about it here on the Standard. The kicker, the big line right here, not Anders Carlson, I mean the kicker, the literary kicker. According to OptaStats, Brock Purdy became the only quarterback since 2000 to deliver over 100 passing yards, over 30 rushing yards, and a 100% completion rate in a quarter. There have been 26,276 quarters of NFL football played since 2000. So what we saw in that third quarter, where the 49ers outscored the Cowboys 21-0, where they outgained Dallas 167-16, where they possessed the ball for nearly 12 minutes and Dallas had it for only about 3, and where Brock Purdy led the 49ers in both passing and rushing yardage. What we saw in that quarter had not happened since at least 2000. Literally, historically good from Brock Purdy. I compared it to Steph Curry and the prime Warriors. They could still do it now, maybe not for the next couple of games while Steph is out with the ankle injury. But the prime Warriors, they would have that death lineup, and they would just come and mow opponents down in the third quarter. The third quarter was the time when the Warriors would flex their muscles and go on these crazy runs. Well, 49ers went on a seismic run against the Cowboys yesterday, and it was Purdy. It was 7 of 7, 103 yards, perfect quarterback rating, 37 rushing yards, led the way in that regard. It was historically good. And I wrote in this piece that it wasn't nearly as graceful in the fourth quarter for the 49ers, but when push came to shove, when they're up 6 and Dallas had the ball, the defense put the clamps down on the Cowboys. Even gave him an extra chance when Fred Warner broke up the interception that would have gone right into Deommodore Lenoir's hands. Obviously, can't really blame that on anybody. Sloppy, inadvertent football play shows that the 49ers had Dallas overmatched with their defense against Dak Prescott on that final drive when 2 guys had a chance at the pick. But the third quarter before that was the tipping point of this game. A 10-6 49ers deficit turned into a 27-10 49ers lead. We had been waiting for San Francisco to just click on all cylinders of complimentary football like that, because we had seen it so often in 2022 and 2023 that, 8 games in, I get it. They didn't have Christian McCaffrey. They haven't had a handful of players. The health situation hasn't been nearly as good as it has been over the past couple of years, minus the 2022 49ers quarterback drama. But we still expected the 49ers to deliver that kind of tour de force at some point over the first 7 games, and they didn't. And they finally did over the third quarter of week 8 against the Dallas Cowboys in time to salvage that first half of the season before the bye week. It would be a lot worse for the 49ers if they were sitting here at 3-5, having to stew about another loss. They'd be in last place in NFC West. The noise would be deafening from the online echo chambers. Instead, they're at 4-4. They have the same record as the NFC West #1 team right now, the Arizona Cardinals. They still play all the NFC West teams again one more time. The Cardinals not until early January in the regular season finale. Everything that the 49ers want to accomplish is still out in front of them. They are beleaguered still from injuries. There are guys, at least one of them, that they won't get back this year. That's Brandon Ayuk. They might actually get Javon Hargrave back. They have the most money on injured reserve out of any team in the NFL. That includes Ayuk. It includes Hargrave, Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw. Those are all big contracts that the 49ers have on IR. They have $93 million right now on IR. So all is not well with the 49ers, but all is definitely better thanks to the win that Brock Purdy helped guide them to over the course of the second half yesterday. So I've got 49ers grades. The link to this article is in the YouTube description. If you're watching on Twitter, go over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, do all that good stuff. And you just type in David Lombardi on YouTube. It's not hard. And then you could see the link to the San Francisco Standard. I've also tweeted this out on the Standard. Maybe it's a good idea to retweet it again. Checking the score of the World Series. Dodgers 4, Yankees nothing. Those of you bored with that, hopefully you're tuning in here. I was only going to wait till the end of the football game. I got to catch a flight in a couple hours from San Francisco International Airport, flying to Nashville tonight. So didn't want to wait for the World Series to be over. I'm going to go ahead and I don't have to retweet it. I will. It's at the top of my Twitter account. You could take a look at Brock Purdy and the historic quarter. Those are the 49ers grades, and we're going to go through them position by position here. Earlier today, had the injury updates, the return update on Christian McCaffrey, all that good stuff, but we always do the grades once a week after the 49ers play, and that is what this show's about. If you have any questions, you can start to put them into the 49ers Q&A. It's also on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, got to come over to the YouTube to ask your question. Sorry, it's a little roundabout in that way, but it's just how it works. This is our primary vehicle for putting the questions up on the screen. So go ahead and toss them into the comment section and we can begin talking about the 49ers performance. This is from 49ers data. SF Data 49ers, really good account that I just discovered. Puts up a lot of nice graphics. This gives you an idea of the efficiency matchup in this game yesterday. Green is good, and anything trending toward yellow and then on into pink or red is below average. So you can see the 49ers won in essentially every aspect of this game except for points per red zone trip. But they also had more red zone trips than the Cowboys in this football game. So EPA per play, 49ers significantly more efficient than the Cowboys. Success rate, significantly higher. EPA per pass, higher. I mean, the 49ers were in the 70th to 80th percentile on these offensive metrics. 95th percentile in yards per play. You could see that the yards per play and the explosive pass rate, both above the 90th percentile, darker green here, outweighed the actual efficiency, which means that the 49ers seem to have left some yardage on the table. They didn't convert that yardage into points. So that tells me that there's still something left in the tank for the 49ers. We definitely were saying that at halftime of this game, something left in the tank. They were at 7.5 yards per play at halftime without scoring a touchdown. That was the 49ers' highest yards per play at half without scoring a touchdown in that half since at least 1991. Josh Dubow of the Associated Press, he's a wizard with some of these stats. He sits 2 seats down from me in the press box, and he saw my tweet about 49ers at 7.5 yards per play with only 2 field goals. And so he actually was able to go into a stat database. He's amazing with this kind of stuff and see that it was since at least 1991, there hadn't been that kind of performance leaving opportunities on the table in the first half. And then they just ate. You could tell it was ticking, and then it exploded in that third quarter. The 49ers were due for something like that. They had Dallas's defense overmatched. And then when Brock Purdy got a little bit more accurate in that second half, he started delivering in stride. It was bombs away for the 49ers. They were in very, very good position. Although I say bombs away, it was actually the opposite. They were, and I write this in the piece, they were at 10.1 air yards per attempt in the first half. And that dropped down to 3.8 air yards per attempt in the second half. So they shortened things up. And it's funny because you go to my database here of articles on the San Francisco Standard, and we go to what I wrote before the game. To beat the Cowboys, the 49ers need to make these 5 crucial fixes. Look what fix number 1 was. Reestablish the short passing game. So in the first half, the 49ers were still high in the air yards, over 10 air yards per attempt. They were going deep a lot. They did throw a few more screens to Deebo Samuel. But in the second half, that really changed. They just zeroed in on that short passing game. This was the highest yak the 49ers had generated all season long. The 2 highest yards after the catch games were this one and the win against Seattle. I think these were their 2 best offensive performances of the season. Seattle, they put up 36 points. Here they put up 30, although it was 30 and most of it was happening right within a half. I think 24 of those 30 points happened in the second half. So I think this offense is best when it is generating yards after the catch, when it is adhering to West Coast offense principles. But what the first 7 games taught us, and hey, even yesterday too, Brock Purdy was hitting some passes deep. They taught us that Brock Purdy can win in any kind of way that he needs to win. He can air the ball out. He can wear out the intermediate portion of the field. And then obviously we hadn't seen the short game turn into victories yet for the 49ers, but it did last night over the course of the second half. So if he can beat you short with the timing throws, which are very hard too, can't take those for granted. If he can beat you with the intermediate precision, 10 to 19 yards, remember highest yards per attempt in documented NFL history last year on the intermediate throws. And he had the highest completion percentage last year on PFF's record for throws that traveled over 20 yards. If he can beat you in all 3 phases, short, intermediate, deep, he's a complete quarterback. Then he's the 8th ranked rushing quarterback in the league. And I think that's only going to climb. I mean, he was moving really well. The SF Data 49ers account pointed out that Brock Purdy added 6 expected points through his scrambles yesterday. A full touchdown's worth on 7 scrambles for Brock Purdy. So anyway, quarterback gets an A in my grades. Put them back up on the screen. QB definitely gets an A because Brock Purdy was so good. Actually, did I give him a B+? Oh, yeah, I did. He gets an A+ for the second half, and he gets like a C for the first half. So I averaged it out. It's a B+. Sorry, I forgot my own grade. Over 68 snaps, B+ for Brock Purdy. I have high standards for him. You know, he's better than the $60 million quarterback that he played against in Dak Prescott yesterday. So I actually went through the air yards per game. This is a good graphic for those of you who are interested. From week 1, 9.7, 8.5, 10.9. Remember week 4 against the Patriots? 14.2 average air yards per attempt. It was down to 7.5 yesterday. That and the Seattle game, the 2 lowest figures of the season for Brock Purdy. But this was the highest yak figure. Yak per reception, 7.8 in this game. Prior weeks, especially early on, the 49ers weren't generating a whole lot of yak. And, you know, it was just, this is a chess match. It always is. You see defenses drop a lot of guys into coverage against the 49ers because they had led the lead in yak last year. So they were trying to take away that intermediate portion of the field, rushing 3 a lot of the time, more 3-man rushes than ever against Brock Purdy and the 49ers. And they're trying to play downhill to stop the yak. And it was working for a few weeks, at least the stopping the yak part. But the 49ers offense was still efficient. Purdy was just throwing over the top of these defenses, and he was still carving them up to the middle of the field. Still had really good statistics. Maybe not as good as last year, but considering the fact he didn't have Christian McCaffrey, I think relatively those stats were really solid from Brock Purdy. So when that continued to be efficient, I think that defenses had to evolve, especially after the Seahawks game. And the way that they evolved was they just started going to heavy pressure with the Chiefs. And that was Steve Spagnuolo with the Chiefs in week 7. And he really, really limited the 49ers offensively. We know all about the struggles in that game against Kansas City. Now, a lot of it was injuries on the 49ers' part. They're missing their top 4 eligibles. They lost 2 of them midstream in that game, and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. So it was back to the drawing board for the 49ers over the course of the week before the Cowboys game. And the way that they countered in this chess match, knowing that there was going to be some heavy pressure packages coming in against them since the Chiefs had done it well the week before, the 49ers went back to their bread and butter with that short passing game. And for that reason, Brock Purdy gets that A+ in the second half of their win against the Dallas Cowboys. Running back, I give him a B+. Why? Because Guerendo was awesome running the ball. We saw Jordan Mason had a couple nice runs as well, but unfortunately for Mason, he got hurt. So we saw the shoulder sprain. Patrick Taylor had a few carries for the 49ers in this game, didn't do anything very notable. And Kyle Juszczyk had 39 snaps in this football game. Even though Guerendo was awesome running the ball, I had to dock the 49ers running backs for the slip up in pass protection on Isaac Guerendo's part. That's got to get better. Overshown was just able to blow past him, and that was the danger zone. 49ers almost blew that game, and that would have been one of the enduring images of blowing that game had Brock Purdy actually fumbled the way that a lot of people would expect him to when he was blindsided. So Guerendo needs to improve there, but I believe in Isaac Guerendo because he's improved so much of what he's done running the football. And the 49ers seem to love what he's made of. They love his attitude. They think that he's mature beyond his years. And they really think that he could become that great counterpart to Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason, who I think has a spot on this team moving forward as soon as he's healthy. But they've been using Mason a lot. And, lo and behold, starts to suffer an aggravated shoulder issue. This is starting to recur. Mason runs a really physical style, and the more punishment you deal out and the more punishment that you take, the harder it is to stay healthy. And it underscores the 49ers need for multiple running backs. So B+ to that room, A- to the receiving room. Now, this is going to be where the 49ers have to make up for some production. Chris Conley, 52 snaps, actually led the room. So our prediction was correct. We thought that Conley would just slide into that X role for Brandon Ayuk because no Juwan Jennings this past week. That means the 49ers couldn't get creative in replacing Ayuk. So they just moved his direct backup up. But now Conley's going to be out for a few weeks or at least a couple weeks. They say it's week to week, or at least one. Although they do have a bye week. So maybe it's out this week and then he's back for the 49ers game coming out of the bye. I don't know. That's going to be against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll know more in a few days. But if Conley's out, do the 49ers move Juwan Jennings, who is supposed to come back for Tampa Bay, to the X? How do they run this? Does Ricky Pearsall just embrace the X? I don't think so. I think you want to more slowly integrate Ricky Pearsall into the mix. But, aside from the couple drops from Deebo Samuel, and there was one really bad one. That was the screen drop that had a convoy of blockers. The other one, Purdy threw behind him. I fault Brock Purdy for the inaccurate throw there in the first half. But besides that, the 49ers receiving group, I thought, was really, really impressive. I mean, they didn't have Ayuk anymore. Samuel made a huge third down catch on a crosser. He would have had the long touchdown had it not been on the Eric Saubert holding penalty. Ricky Pearsall has built up some rapport already with Brock Purdy. Conley blocks his ass off downfield. This is a good unit. I think the biggest blemish might have been the 3rd and 1 in the fourth quarter where Purdy's rolling out and Ronnie Bell didn't work back toward him. Saw Purdy angry on that play. I think he was trying to tell Ronnie, what's up? You got a scramble drill. You got to work back toward me. I need somebody to throw to. And that play almost ended up costing the 49ers. They couldn't pick up the yard. They punted the ball away, and Seattle got to work right from there. I think that they were up 17 at the time of that play with a chance to just squash Seattle. They didn't do it. And by the time the 49ers blinked a couple times, the Seahawks were only down by 6. Anyway, A- for the receiver room just because of those couple of drops that I talked about. A- for the tight end room, not because of how good George Kittle was. That deserved an A+. 500th career catch. Legendary performance, 128 yards for George Kittle, 6 catches, throws of every type of variety. Running a little bit deeper, running the corner route, running a little flat route, running a cross route. This one was interesting, the one that makes the V back in. Kittle, I don't know if Purdy was supposed to lead him so he could just hit this in stride and run up the sideline. I haven't had a chance to ask George about that yet. But if that wasn't what he was trying to do, then it still worked because Kittle was able to cut back over the middle of the field. It was during the first half where it seemed that Purdy mechanically had something off with his throwing motion. He might have been opening his hips too much. He just was missing behind a little too much. It's like he was throwing sliders instead of fastballs. Speaking of the World Series. Score update. Final. The Yankees lose. The Yankees lose, right? Doesn't their announcer do that? But he says, the Yankees win. Is it John Sterling, I think? But it's the Yankees lose 4-2. And they're down 3-0. So the Dodgers are going to try for the sweep in Yankee Stadium. That will not be a pretty sight if the Yankees cannot get that job done. Anyway, talking about Brock Purdy, his dad was a pitcher, Sean. Brock pitched as well. And in the first half, it didn't seem that he was hitting the strike zone, so to speak, if we're going to use the baseball analogy. There are a few crossers that just, weren't hitting fully in stride, and that damaged the 49ers offensive efficiency. But in the second half, he absolutely was hitting his stride. I apologize. I've got to go back to the screen I had here. I knocked out the connection really quickly. Sometimes that happens. It's embarrassing, but it does happen. So here we go. I was talking about the Purdy crossers and the passes that he did start hitting. How about this one to George Kittle? I'm tracing it right now on this screen. I should make this bigger, right? This should probably take up the entirety of the screen. Give me a second. I want everybody to be able to enjoy the route tree of George Kittle yesterday. So this is the throw that Purdy hit in perfect stride from the opposite hash. I'm tracing it with the magnifying glass. You can see it right here. Kittle bends into the route, crosses the hashes, and then where it turns green is where it turns into yak. And Purdy threw that ball, if we're going to go Pythagorean theorem on the hypotenuse, from this hash across the field to this spot. So that's about 20 yards past the line of scrimmage. I'd say from about 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So it was traveling vertically 30 yards downfield. Football field is 53 yards wide. So it's taken about, about 30 of those yards? Yeah. So I would say that it's 30 yards on one of the, I haven't taken geometry in a couple decades. So one of the sides of the triangle, 30 yards on the other side of the triangle. And then the long diagonal side, that's the hypotenuse, right? If we go a squared plus b squared equals c squared, we can do this. I'm going to find out how far that throw went. Let me get the calculator open. Now, I know some of you probably are mathematicians. You do some crazy stuff at NASA or Silicon Valley, and you're laughing at me right now, but I don't care. I'm going to do old-fashioned math. 30 times 30, 900. So plus 900. All right, 1,800. We need to get the square root of 1,800. Can we do this? $42. The square root of 1,800 is 42. If I'm incorrect, let me know. This throw, based on my calculations, this one right here on George Kittle breaking and then crossing the field and moving over toward that sideline, this throw from Purdy traveled about 42 yards in the air. So for those of you questioning Brock Purdy's arm strength, realize that a football field is 53 yards wide, and my best calculations show that he threw a ball on a rope for 42 yards on the hypotenuse. So the legs and the hypotenuse, yes, we've got a math major here, or somebody just knows more than me about math. It's like, are you kidding me? Purdy has no velocity. Did you see how quickly that throw got out there? I mean, I really don't understand. If Purdy didn't have any velocity, how is he fitting the ball into tight NFL windows? He has the lowest average separation of any quarterback in the NFL, at least entering this game he did. So how can you say that he didn't have any velocity? He's completing these passes. He's the one thrusting himself into the MVP discussion. I mean, just watch with your eyes. I feel that you look at his draft status and you decide that there must be some kind of flaw here. So it just overrides your brain. And you're like, well, he was picked number 262. He must be slow. Well, that's been proven wrong. 10-yard split, elite, running in elite style. I mean, six expected points added via his scrambles alone. So he picked his spots well. So you don't have that anymore. So now the next thing is back to the square one where you're going to talk about his arm strength as if he didn't lead the league in deep pass completion percentage last year, as if he wasn't the most efficient quarterback we've ever seen on intermediate passes last year. I mean, come on. Again, if the numbers aren't good for you, like if that doesn't work for you, then maybe the actual throw should work for you. 42 yards from here to here. That's 42 yards. Hit Kittle in stride. The evidence is on tape. Like, I can't keep on telling you 1 + 1 = 2 only for you to say that it equals 3. At some point, you just have to accept that 1 + 1 = 2 and say that Purdy is a pretty damn good quarterback all the way around with a strong enough arm to do a lot of damage in the NFL. As Kenny points out, he had the same amount of rushing yards as the Cowboys team combined. So that's 37 yesterday, right? That's a good stat from that game. All right, where were we? We're still on the grades. Offensive line. I gave the offensive line an A. You know, Dominic Purdy has yet to allow a single sack at the NFL level, and he didn't allow a single sack at the D1 college level either. So Dominic Purdy has not allowed a sack since he was in Division II football. That was a long time ago in terms of his career arc and his development. He did give up a pressure last night, but I mean, he's not giving up the type of damaging pressures that can happen against right guards that turn into surefire sacks. Part of that's Brock Purdy and his escapability. I get it. But we've seen Dominic Purdy. We've seen how well he's playing, the upgrade that the 49ers have enjoyed at right guard. 0 sacks. As a rookie starter, he didn't give up a single sack. We're halfway through the season, and he didn't give up a single sack in college at Kansas either. He still remembers the last time he gave up a sack at, I think it was Central Missouri was his Division II school. Shout out to Dominic Purdy and his parents. I got to meet them a few weeks ago. That was a cool moment. So good people, and hopefully they're watching. Hopefully they're on the channel right now. The 49ers offensive line now ranks number 13 in cumulative Pro Football Focus pass block grade. They rank number 13. Like, everybody was telling me that the 49ers offensive line is terrible in pass protection, worst in the league. They didn't invest in it. Well, Dominic Purdy looks like an investment to me. That looks like return on investment to me. And the number 13 overall grade, pass block grade, that seems like it's above average to me. There are 32 teams. Last year, they're in the 20s. This year, they are number 13. Well done from the 49ers offensive line. I thought that was their best game in pass protection. They only gave up 5 pressures. The 6th pressure that they gave up was on Isaac Guerendo against Overshone on the blitz pickup or the failed blitz pickup. There was a lot of complex stuff, aggressive stuff that Dallas was throwing at the 49ers. Football is a team sport. So Kyle Shanahan can help out his offensive line by building better answers into what Brock Purdy is trying to do downfield against some of the pressures. I don't think the answers were good enough against Spagnuolo and the Chiefs. Thought the answers were really good. They used Ricky Pearsall on some short routes. They ran a lot of screens to diffuse pressure against the Cowboys. I mean, if Shanahan calls a game with good built-in answers, the line is going to benefit because Brock Purdy will have easier, quicker releases, and the line won't have to hold its blocks for as long. So it improves the pressure rate allowed by the line. I love how football is so symbiotically tied together. You can never just point at one thing. They got to pull weight together as a team, and I thought that the 49ers did that really well last week. All right, now we move forward into the defensive line. This is a good spot of the grades article. First off, there's a new leader in the NFL in pressures. I know Aiden Hutchinson got hurt. He's done for the year. He got hurt at the top by quite a bit. He had 45 pressures a couple weeks ago when he got hurt. Bosa, over the past 2 games, has caught and passed Aiden Hutchinson. Nick Bosa is now your NFL leader with 46 pressures on the year. Yesterday, it was Bosa with 6, Okawanu with 5, Collins with 5, Floyd with 3, Robert Beal with 1, and Jordan Elliott with 1 pressure. So the 49ers got pressure from all angles. I loved the fact that Okawanu, 3 of his 5 came from an interior alignment, which is huge. I give the defensive line a solid A in this football game. I gave the offensive line an A as well, too, because I thought that was their best game. Whenever you get A's in both trenches, you're likely to win the football game. And that's what the 49ers got yesterday. Linebacker. Well, we went back to my page on the standard. Oh, well, I'm going to take that off the screen. Linebacker, I give the 49ers a B+. Everybody was complaining about the first pass play that we saw from Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb, they're like, why is Devondre Campbell in coverage? Well, first off, it was zone. It's not like they're putting Devondre Campbell on CeeDee Lamb and man. Second off, it was the first drive. You throw out a lot of base defense in the first drive, a lot of base zone. You get a feel for what they're trying to do to you offensively. It's not a big deal to give up 1 first down early in the game. They just wanted to make sure they kept everything in front of them. So that was that. Otherwise, Campbell had the big body slam tackle early in this football game. That was a nice tackle. I think that set a physical tone for the 49ers. I don't think he missed a single tackle. I think Fred Warner missed one in the game yesterday. They dialed up Fred Warner on the blitz on that last third down. That was a good call. That was a good call from Nick Sorensen. He'd rushed. This was when the game was on the line. Four downs for the Dallas Cowboys. They're in their own territory. They just move the ball easily down the field. And the 49ers needed to get a stop. The first 2 downs where they rushed 4, they almost get the pick on second down. Warner knocks it away from Lenore. It's 3rd and 10. And I think it would have been very easy for Nick Sorensen to get complacent on that 3rd down. He's like, well, the first 2 downs, the coverage that I had and the rush that I had worked. We almost had an interception. I should do the same thing. That's when you get burned, especially by a quarterback like Dak Prescott, who's been around the league for a while. You cannot continue just rushing 4 every down. There has to be a mix-up in there. It's something that has to change what he's seeing. So he brought Fred Warner on the 3rd down. And it was a good, well-executed blitz. It rushed Dak Prescott. Deep throw, good coverage. I think it was Kevontae Turpin running down the sideline, and it was Diamaro Lenore on the coverage. That set up the 4th down. They went back to a 4-man rush on the 4th down. They forced Prescott out of the pocket. Good coverage, 7 in coverage with only 4 rushing, and things worked out. So anyway, linebackers, I gave them a B+. I didn't see massive coverage deficiencies from the linebackers. The unit that I gave a B- was the secondary, actually. This was tricky because, it was the secondary's fault that they let the Cowboys back in this game between the blown coverage on CeeDee Lamb's first touchdown and then the collision between Renardo Green and Malik Mustafa on the second one. But then I had to balance that with the awesome plays that Renardo and Malik were making in the first half. And Diamaro Lenore. I mean, you have the Diamaro Lenore video we can play. That's the interception ball from Diamaro Lenore. He's juggling it out there. His 8th interception. And he said he wanted to look like a snowboarder, so he put on the goggles. And I think it was Tracy Sandler that was joking that he had his Jimmy Garoppolo Rams jersey on. Trust me, I don't think it's actually a Jimmy Garoppolo Rams jersey, but that's Lenore with the football that he intercepted. And the best part of what Lenore said was that he saw the formation from the Cowboys. I think some kind of I formation. And because of that, he played the probabilities and he said that CeeDee Lamb normally runs this off that formation. So he sunk back into coverage and gambled on that route. And I can't wait to do a little bit more digging on this because who is really big on probabilities and percentages and playing that angle of the game? Brandon Staley. Lenore's talked about it before. And Brandon Staley is the guy that developed Jalen Ramsey in 2020 with the Rams into an inside-out cornerback. Lenore's played twice as many snaps in the slot as he has on the outside. But the slot is just as or more difficult than the outside. So that's nothing against Lenore. In fact, I think this is showing that how valuable Lenore is to be able to do both, be that star position, just like Jalen Ramsey was back in 2020 for the Rams. So that inside-out adaptability that the 49ers have cultivated with Deommodore Lenoir through Brandon Staley, who has experience with a very successful defense doing this. It's been fun to watch. And I do think that Brandon Staley's tutelage, that playing percentages based on formations, gambling on certain routes, laying off on others, I think that might be coming into play with how well Deommodore Lenoir is playing, because it's really been a special high level of play. Anyway, I gave the DBs a B- just because, it's tough. They had the collision. They let Dallas get back into the game, but they also made plays to give the 49ers a big lead. I thought that was Jair Brown's best game. And I thought that Malik Mustafa and Renardo Green both had massive plays as well. As far, people might be wondering, Renardo's day-to-day with the ankle injury. So good news there. It's not anything worse. It's a low ankle sprain. Renardo Green, the rookie, listed as day-to-day. Finally, special teams for San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan said it best. This finishes the article on the San Francisco Standard. I was proud of us last night, Shanahan said. I thought we were up against a huge challenge. I thought our guys played real hard and did a real good job controlling Cavante Turpin. He's one of the bigger game changers in this game. I think we've dealt with a lot of stuff on special teams, a lot of changing on people, a lot of young guys starting out to play who we've lost and having to replace them with new guys and working in a lot of different people. I expect us to get better with that throughout the year. I know it hadn't been good enough in the first half, not at all, but I thought last night was a step in the right direction. It indeed was. I think the 49ers clearly won the special teams battle last night against the number one special teams unit in football. It's not being mentioned enough. The Cowboys penalized themselves like 4 times on kickoffs. The 49ers kicked one out of bounds. That was their one penalty. It happens. But, better than giving up a big return to let Cavante Turpin and Dallas back into the game. And I don't think the 49ers ever hurt themselves field position-wise in this game. They had nothing was a spectacular return, but they gained a few yards here and there. This is a good showing from the 49ers special teams. Just that, every single week, good enough. We know that the 49ers offense can be a juggernaut, especially Christian McCaffrey coming back in all likelihood. We know that the defense can do some nice stuff. They shut Dallas down for 4 straight drives. If you're the special teams, just don't screw it up. So those are the grades. Everybody hit the like button. And I am going to check out the comment section. Any questions? We're going to put up 49ers Q&A. Doesn't look like any questions. It looks like everybody's just talking trash to Jim Everett, which is acceptable behavior. That's a fun time in the comment section. Jim's always a good sport. This is a good one. Am I doing a meetup in Tampa? Yes. The answer is yes. Margot and I decided that there will be a meetup in Tampa today. It's going to be Saturday, I would say about 5 p.m., a little bit before dinner. If my guy Mark, who we're going to dinner with in Tampa's there, I got to let you know. Sorry, we're going out to dinner after, so we'll probably have dinner reservations or plans after. But we will do a meetup. It will be in the downtown Tampa area. It will be November 9th before the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, yes, put it on your calendars. Meetup in Tampa coming up in less than 2 weeks on November 9th. Kenny Hamilton has a good point. Greenlaw was everywhere versus the Cowboys last year. The defense is completely different when he's healthy. That is true. Meet up in Tampa. It's happening November 9th. I've got 2 hours before my flight leaves, and I still have to throw some stuff in my suitcase and slowly make my way down to the airport. So a full day of content. There's a lot of videos up, so go and watch them all on YouTube. I think I covered every single angle of this 49ers win over the Cowboys. Literally, there's videos, there's lives. Check it all out. You should be covered until I'm in the Central Time Zone, and we'll come to you from the other studio tomorrow. So everybody take care. Have a good night.